Hi, I'm Phil Cook, CEO, founder, Cook Media Group based in Los Angeles. Our job is to help churches, ministry organizations, and Christians and nonprofits tell their story more effectively through the media. In fact, I've written a number of blog posts just recently on this coronavirus and how we can use live streaming and short videos and other tools in media to help not just stay connected with our congregations and donors and supporters, but also potentially grow our ministry. And that's a little bit what I want to talk about today, because I know that so many churches are being shut down all over the country. Here in California, just yesterday, the governor said that his recommendation is we shut down any group of 250 or more. Today, the mayor said we need to move that to 50 or more people. So we're seeing all over the country churches being closed temporarily. But the truth is, through live streaming, I think we can actually not only stay connected to our congregations, but actually grow them. So that's what I want to stay with you today and talk a little bit about. And it's interesting that when John Bach and I wrote the book, The Way Back, How Christians Blew Our Credibility and How We Get It Back, one of the things we talked about is these kind of crisis moments are when the church really excels. It's interesting to me that so many Christians feel like we should hunker down. They're full of fear. They're shutting their congregation, shutting their church and not doing anything. But you know, we often forget that the building is not the church. Even when people show up at the building, it's not necessarily the church. The church is individual believers coming together to do amazing things and impact the culture. It's interesting, in one of the studies we did for our book, we looked at the early Christians, the very first generation, the early church, and we discovered that the impact they made that was so amazing was how they changed their behavior and simply lived the way God's called us to live. It's kind of funny, one of the biggest impressions the early church made in the Roman Empire was during periods of the plague. When the plague hit, the Romans were famous for getting out of town quick. I mean, if they were rich, they were headed to their country estates. They could not get out of town quick enough. In fact, Romans themselves made jokes about the fact that if a family was leaving town because of the plague, if grandma coughed, they would just ditch her off the wagon into the side of the road and just keep going. But it's interesting, one of the Roman leaders noticed that Christians did the exact opposite. He said that Christians, I don't understand them, but they go to the heart of the plague, minister to people they don't even know at the risk of their life. And you know what? So many things like that made such an incredible impression on the Roman Empire that it wasn't very long before the tables were turned. The early Christians forced the Romans through their behavior during times of the plague and during times of other crisis in the world. It forced the Romans to rethink who these Christians are and who is this God they serve. And within a remarkably short time, we discover that Christianity became the dominant faith of the Roman Empire and eventually the Western world. So I think this is our moment. Don't be filled with fear. Don't worry that we should hunker down and just close our doors. This is a time for us to make an impact in the culture. Trust me, the way we respond to this crisis will say more about the gospel, will say more about Christianity than all the lectures, all the teaching, all the criticism, all the boycotts, really anything else we could do combined. So I think it's really time that we got together and started looking at it. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I really wanted to look at 11 key things that you should be thinking about. Now keep in mind, this is not just for mega churches or large size churches. This is for anybody. I mean, if you've got one of these, you can live stream. I mean, right now, I'm in our office at Cook Media Group here in Los Angeles. Dan Wathen, our executive producer, is behind the iPad. We're filming this on an iPad. So there's nothing fancy about live streaming. You don't have to have multiple cameras. If you do have that capability, that's terrific, and we'll talk about some things you can do to make it even more compelling. But the truth is, if you just have an iPad or a mobile device, a phone, you can live stream. So make a note of these things, and here's the deal. Stay tuned to the end, because at the end, I'm going to give you a download site. I'm going to give you a link where you can download some remarkable material and resources that will help literally walk you through step by step on how to build your online platform, how to build your live stream, and what to do. It's just some great information that you need to have. But so stay tuned to the very end. I'll give you that link, and you'll be able to download absolutely free and get the information you need to really make an impact. So here, let's talk about 11 things first about how to make an impact. Just keep in mind during this whole thing that the church is really about change. Trust me, we since the days of the early church, the way they did what we call church is nothing like we do today. It's evolved, it's changed over time. Our team at Cook Media Group is working on a documentary on the rise of Christianity in Asia. And we've been filming in Mongolia and India and China, Korea, Japan, and We've studied the last 2,000 years of Christianity in those countries, and it's not anything like what we do here. So, in fact, Jesus came to the earth to get religious leaders out of a rut. They were stuck in their thinking. So I look at a crisis like this as an opportunity for us to change the way we think about how we do church. Now, just let me say this for critics, that I'm not talking about overthrowing normal church. I think fellowship matters. We need to get believers together and worship God and be taught. That's important. But we're talking about crisis moments like this. What happens when we can't do that? What happens when we're forced to close the doors? But I have to say, I've always been a proponent of live streaming. And not just in a crisis moment like this, but think of the college students in your church that would like to check on what's happening on Sunday back home at the church, or the transient folks that have had to move away from your community and would love to check in on what's going on at your church. I know that my wife Kathleen and I travel an enormous amount all over the world, and every Sunday morning, wherever we were in the world, whatever time zone, she pops her laptop open so she can watch our church live stream back here in Los Angeles. So to not be connected in that way, you're denying, sometimes a very significant audience seeing what you have to say. I know one pastor I met in the Midwest recently he preaches to 700 people in the pew on Sunday, which is great, but he has 10,000 people watching on his live stream every week. So it's a powerful tool. We've worked with churches at Cook Media Group. Our team works with churches right now that not only have a large live stream, but are making as much as a third of their total income from the live stream audience, which tells me that the live stream audience, they want to be loyal. They want to be connected in some way. Another thing that it's important to note is that statistically, a significant part of your live stream audience is international. So you instantly become a global church, a global ministry, the minute you go on a live stream. So just think about those things as we talk about these 11 key issues that I think are so important. Let me start with number one, which is determine the team you need to make the live stream happen. Now, as I mentioned, in this case, it's me and Dan. Our producer, Dan Wathen, and I are here. Laura Woodworth, our other producers, online in the chat room talking to people. But we got together yesterday and we said, now, who do we need to do? Who do we need to have? What equipment do we need to make this happen? The key thing is, remember this, when people watch you on your live stream, a significant number of those people don't know who you are. They've never been to your church. They don't know anything about you. So you don't want a bad shot, poor lighting, some screw up with the Wi-Fi. You don't want that to make them think, well, this is not very good. I'll go watch something else. So get the right team together, and it may be a high school kid with a mobile device. That may be it. Or it may be a video team or communications team you have at your church. Whatever it is, start by getting them together, figuring out who you need to have on site live to make the live stream happen. The second thing is, remember that if you want this to look like a church service, now one of the things I want to get across to you is an online church experience doesn't have to look like what it looks like in the sanctuary. Certainly, if you're recording a live meeting and the people are all there, you can make it look like whatever you want. You can make it look like the sanctuary and the normal Sunday service. However, during a time of crisis, like during this coronavirus, you may want to do the live stream from your office. You may want to do it from an empty sanctuary. So you may not have your worship team there. You may not have musicians there. So I'd encourage you to think about what we have on tape. Perhaps you're shooting your services every week. Think of 2 or 3 worship songs you could pull to roll into your live stream on this Sunday for your live stream broadcast. Think of hymns you may have in the back. Think of choir numbers you may have already recorded. This is a big reason why I think we should be archiving our Sunday services. Film them. Get cameras, film your services. Number one, you want a sermon archive. I'd love for pastors to have an archive of their messages on videotape available to people to be able to download and use, put on YouTube, put on Facebook, on other places. But also, if you've got that music, you could use that in your live stream. So think about how you could use it. But understand this, the live stream, particularly during this time of crisis, during this coronavirus situation, doesn't have to model or copy your normal Sunday service. It could be just like me, sitting at a table talking, you sharing your message for that Sunday. It could be out in the church lobby. It could be any number of things. So don't get your thinking locked into the fact that your live stream has to look like your normal Sunday service. But if you have elements you want to roll in, great, I say do it. The third thing to understand is, in a live stream situation, particularly during this coronavirus era when maybe nobody's in your congregation, the camera becomes your audience. So don't fake it. Don't stand up there and pretend you're talking to a crowd that doesn't exist out there. that live stream audience, we're not stupid. We understand what's going on. So I'd encourage you, focus on the camera. That's your people out there. And my advice to pastors and leaders and on-camera hosts is always, don't think about the fact that there's hundreds of people or thousands of people out there. Talk to them like it's one person. Just have a conversation with that person, because they are one person to themselves. They're sitting at home watching you on a mobile device or a computer. So make that that live stream experience as if you're talking to one person. Now, I normally tell my pastors and leaders that I work with that if it's a normal situation and you do have a congregation out there, talk to both. Talk to the congregation, refer to the camera. The congregation, it doesn't look weird to them. They don't know that that's what you're doing. But you want to make eye contact with everybody in your audience. So whether it's the live congregation or whether it's the camera, understand that eye contact is really critical. So if you're just doing it to a camera, just doing it to an iPad or a mobile device, look there. That's your contact point. The fourth thing I would say is, don't forget giving. You know, this is not about the prosperity gospel. It's not about making money. But the truth is, if you believe, as I do, that giving is a vital part of worship, you can worship with your giving, don't forget to include that in your live stream. Now, the critical thing is, if you do, and by the way, let me just say, if you don't want to include giving in it, that's okay. You're the pastor, it's your call. But I just would encourage you, don't feel pressure not to give people the opportunity to give as a part of this worship experience online. And you need to get some things in a row. How are they going to do it? You may want to use credit cards. They may be able to go to your church website. You may want to use apps like Venmo or the Cash App. There's plenty of platforms and apps and ways for people to give online. But all I'm saying is, think about that. Don't just automatically, because it's a live stream, think, and by the way, if anybody's watching right now and wants to send us a large donation to help with these things, feel free. But the truth is, people want to help you accomplish your mission. So don't be afraid to make giving and worship through giving a part of your live stream. The fifth thing I would say is, understand that live stream technology today allows you to do some really interesting things. And I would encourage you to explore this. Really explore this. One of the things I'm going to give you in the resource that I'm going to give you, and remember, if you stay tuned to the end, I'm going to have a downloadable resource. I'll give you a link that you can download some amazing resources. One of those came from our friends at Life Church in Oklahoma City. Bobby Grunwald, the innovation pastor there, and Craig Rochelle, who's the senior pastor at Life Church, sent us a link where they've compiled really a walkthrough of steps for you to go through to really establish a compelling presence in your online experience, in your worship service online, in your live stream. So that's going to be on there. And what they've done, I think, Craig and Bobby and their team have really done some amazingly innovative things. For instance, you can have chat rooms. You're watching on Facebook right now, so certainly you can talk in the chat section there. And by the way, I'd appreciate it if you like what we're doing. Share it with your friends. You can do those things with online tools today, but you can have, even if you're live streaming from your website or from some other source, you can have chat rooms. But I'd say put a real church leader, a mature spiritual person in that chat room, because they could provide information. I've seen people led to Christ in chat rooms. I've seen people brought to church from chat rooms. So it's amazing the power of what goes on in there. There are other tools that you can have online. So just take the time to explore, or have your team explore, what the options are, because you can do some really remarkable things through your live stream experience. Number 6. When it comes to live streaming, don't just limit this to the adults. Think about what you could do, what your church or ministry could do to reach kids through a live stream or through short videos. Now, the truth is, there's a lot of competition out there for kids. I've got 2 young grandkids, and when they watch YouTube, there's some amazing stuff out there, amazing material. So you can't just put Sister Bertha and Brother Roy on camera reading a Bible story or singing the church triumphant or whatever. It's got to be compelling. You've got to really, and this might be a great challenge to your youth leaders. Sit your youth leaders down and say, what could we do on video? What could we do in a live stream environment? And then encourage pastors to share, or encourage parents to share that with their kids. If you can do that, I think you have a chance of reaching kids. So just don't forget kids when it comes to bridging this gap during this coronavirus or at other times, bridging the gap through live streaming, through short videos, through other media tools. Number 7. Remember, this just isn't about the Sunday service. Certainly, we're all thinking about we've shut down on Sundays. How do we connect with our congregation? How do we make a compelling Sunday experience with teaching and worship? But overall, there's so many other things you could do with live streaming. So many other things. And short videos, let me just throw a couple thoughts out for you. Recently, we did a piece with Barry McGuire, a ministry leader down in Orange County, who has a real passion and a heart for teaching people how to share Christ with their friends. So we decided we wanted to do a television episode really geared toward men. And so I called Greg Laurie. Greg, pastor of Harvest Church in Riverside, California. Greg has a replica of the Mustang from the Steve McQueen film from the 60s. Dan, what's the film? The Bullet, the 60s. The 60s film Bullet, the Steve McQueen movie. He's got this amazing replica Mustang. So we got that, and we tricked it out with cameras on the inside, got he and Barry, Greg and Barry on the inside, had them drive down the Pacific Coast Highway, had a drone follow them, and they just simply had a conversation while driving in this amazing Mustang on how to share Christ with your friends. And the interesting thing was when we were in a parking lot in Laguna Beach rigging the car, our film crew was there rigging the car, Greg he got bored, so Greg just reached in his pocket, pulled his camera out, did a little video. And he talked about being there with his Mustang and being there with Phil, and we're shooting a TV episode on sharing Christ with your friends. In fact, let me show you a couple steps on how to share Christ with your friends. And he shot a little video, and it went out, and it got an amazing number of shares, and people were really blessed by that, and it touched a lot of people. So, don't just think this is about the Sunday morning experience. What other things could you share? Maybe with short films about your mission program, about your youth group trip to Mexico, or whatever it is, short missions you're doing, or senior outreaches and other things that your church is doing. Now, let me just say a word about short videos, and I think this is really important. Short videos have become the number one marketing tool in America. If you've listened to my podcast, and you should be listening to my podcast on iTunes or my YouTube channel, I've talked about the fact that short films, 4 to 6 minute little videos, have become the number one marketing tool in America. More people are using that. I think short films now take up more bandwidth online than anything short of Amazon Prime and Netflix. I read a statistic recently that 55% of people who watch a short video want to find out more. What does that say for the cause of Christ? So you should be thinking about beyond Sunday. Certainly get your act together when it comes to the live stream on Sunday morning, but think about all the other things your church could do, and we'd certainly be able to help you with ideas for doing some of those things and training your team and helping you really utilize media in a more effective way, because it's not just a Sunday morning tool. It can be a very, very powerful thing. Number 8, make sure your online experience, let's go back to your Sunday service for a minute. Make sure your live stream is on demand. I know a lot of churches that have done live streaming of their Sunday service, and they do a great job, but at the end of the service, they go to black and it's never heard from again. Make sure that your live stream, whether it's posted on your website or posted on YouTube or posted on Facebook or other places, make sure people can watch it anytime after that initial live broadcast. After this is over, we're going to be posting this on Facebook for replays. And so you can share this with other people, churches, pastors, leaders you know. I'd encourage you, please share this, but you can do the same thing with your live stream broadcast. So keep that in mind. You want to make it available anytime for people to watch it, because as I said before, significant numbers of your viewers are international. They may want to see it tomorrow or the next day or the next. That's what you need to be thinking about. And by the way, as I go through these things, ask us questions. Ask us questions. And tell us, are you streaming your services this Sunday? I'd love to know. Jump in there and find out if you're streaming, or if you'd like to stream your service, or if you have any questions we want to answer. Got a few more points, and then we'll jump to those things in just a second. Last couple things I think is important is number 9, promote it. Promote it. Let me tell you, if you decide to go online with your Sunday service, get the word out through your church bulletin, through your mailings that you might do, through direct mail at your church, or through social media, through your website. Let people know. And in the same way, number 10, share it. I'm stunned at the number of pastors that never encourage their congregation to share about their church through social media. I don't care if you're only preaching to 20 people on Sunday. If those 20 people share about your live stream or share about what's going on at your church to their followers, and then they share it to their followers and their followers, pretty soon you're into the thousands and thousands of people hearing about your message and what you're doing. I encourage pastors, talk about it from the pulpit. Ask people if church has meant something to them. Share it on social media. Get the word out there. Talk about it on Facebook. Blog about it. Whatever you do, ask people to share it. Let me tell you, I don't care how awesome and anointed your live stream service is. If nobody knows about it, you failed. So don't forget, encourage people to share it. And number 11, the 11th thing I think that's really, really important is understand that, and I get the fact that many churches out there, they really can't afford to make the kind of investment into this that they'd like. They don't have multiple cameras. They don't have a video department. They don't have a control room and equipment like that. But don't let that stop you. As I said before, keep in mind that if you've got a mobile device, if you've got an iPhone, you can live stream. So don't let the lack of equipment hold you back. If you're doing ministry on the street, let me tell you, take your phone out there, take your iPad out there, get somebody to film it, talk about it, share what you're doing with the world. It's very, very important. Now, let me say a last thing real quick about screens, because some of the biggest pushback I get is with pastors, particularly baby boomer pastors and older, who really don't get the screen thing, and they don't see how somebody could be led to Christ through this, or somebody could actually be directed to a church, or they just think there's something weird about going to church watching a screen. Well, I talked about this on my blog at philcook.com. By the way, when I talk about Phil Cook, it's Cook with an E. If you're looking for my blog at philcook.com, it's Cook with an E, Cook Media Group, Cook with an E. Check us out. But I was talking about this on my blog at philcook.com the other day, and Larry Ross, my old friend Larry Ross, Larry Ross Communications in Dallas, been in the public relations, media management business forever, for decades, reached out to me. And he said, I noticed something about screens that I thought you might find interesting. He said he ran the media, managed the media outlets in the public relations for more than 70 major Billy Graham crusades over the years. And he said, I always noticed that when I was managing those crusades and managing the media, we always noticed that overflow crowds, people who weren't in the same building, in another stadium or another room or another building, and people in the back of the stadium that were watching on a Jumbotron screen, he said, invariably, when it came to the altar call, we had more people come forward to accept Christ in front of a Jumbotron screen than we had down front in the stadium coming forward to accept Christ in front of the actual guy, Billy Graham. He said there's something compelling about seeing that close-up of Billy on a 20-foot high screen that really gets that message across. And as a director and a producer, I know, because it's in the eyes, it's in the facial expressions, it's in how you share the gospel. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. And so very often the screen is far more powerful than we think. So that's not to say that it's more powerful than your Sunday service. When people are coming, that's great. But I'll tell you, don't shy away from exploring how you can use screens, whether it's online, through live streaming, whatever, short videos, to reach people with the gospel. As I said before, I've seen people led to Christ through screens. I've seen people find a church home through screens. So I think that's really important. So let me look at the last couple things. I just wanted to get across to you because I think it's really important. Understand that in our world today, we just need to embrace this. We really need to embrace it. And as I wrap this up, let me give you a link to the resource page I want you to go to. All I need is your name and your email address. And by the way, there's a box you can click where you can get updates from us. I'm going to continue writing about these things and giving you tips as they come along. We'll update the resources. So check that box when you go. And it's cookmediagroup.com/streaming. cookmediagroup.com/streaming. Go to that page right now and you can download. It's about a 9 or 10 page special report that we've put together that has notes from what I've been discussing on it, but it also has a list of resources. I'll give you an idea of some of the resources. For instance, we have resources from our company. You can email. Our email address is on there, info@cookmediagroup.com. If you'd like to email us, you have questions. If you'd like our team to come and help your church get on, do a live stream or help take it to another level or do other things in media, whether it's short videos or broadcast TV, we're here to help, and feel free to contact us. We also have that Life Church resource that I mentioned that Bobby and his team put together that's really quite amazing, that'll walk you through the steps you need to take. I've also got an interesting report from Wheaton College that really is going to help a church navigate this coronavirus from more than a media perspective, from a medical perspective, from a lot of different issues. It's a great report from Wheaton College that I think you should download and check out. And I also have something interesting. As you close your church in places, and again, I'm not advocating you close, but we have to do different things in different parts of the country depending on what the status of the virus is right now. I've put 2 examples from homepages of churches of how they explained it on their homepage. Judah Smith up at Church Home in Seattle, that's a real hot spot right now. I think Judah was probably one of the first churches to really be forced to shut down and close and go online exclusively. And I was so impressed with what Judah put on the homepage of their church, and it could be a template for you. So download it from cookmediagroup.com/streaming. Download it and you'll see the template. And feel free, he gave us permission to use this. And feel free to, the great thing about what Judah and his team have done is they just didn't provide information about how to find the link to their live stream and when it is and how to get there, but he also provided links to the local state health board and the local community medical center. And if you have questions about the coronavirus, I mean, that's the church in action, folks. That's the church really ministering to people and helping people. Then, and I put another one, a similar one that Matthew Barnett at Angelus Temple, they're in association with the Dream Center in Los Angeles, and he had a more simple approach. And I put that on there because the wording and the text of that may give you some ideas and help you in figuring out what you want to say on the home page as you move people online. I also might say, I don't have it in this resource, but Erwin McManus at Mosaic Church did a fantastic video, I think it was yesterday, really talking about how he feels about what's going on and what decisions they've made about the virus. So you might look up Mosaic Church here in Los Angeles, Erwin McManus, who is, a master communicator as far as I'm concerned. And he did a very compelling message about how to do that. So I think that's really important. So that's the key. I think the important thing is we'll follow up. If you have questions, we really don't have time to get to a lot of the questions today, but we'll follow up. Laura Woodworth is in the chat room right now on Facebook talking with people, and she'll answer questions. I'll get on there and answer some questions. We'll replay this in the days and weeks to come because I think it's important. And please share it. Like it. It'll help us go up as far as viewership and more people will get to see it. But pastors, ministry leaders, people in communications and media at local churches. Get the word out to them. Share this with them and certainly go to Cook Media Group, Cook with an E, cookmediagroup.com/streaming. Download that document because I think it's really going to help you sit around the table with your church team and talk about what you need to be doing to navigate this crisis. Remember, last thing I'll say is this. Just like we talked about in our book, The Way Back, the early church made the greatest impact simply because how they responded in a crisis. You know what? All the teaching you do, all the great work you do, all that stuff matters. But when the world sees how we respond during a difficult, challenging time like this, that potentially can change everything. So just remember that. And thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks for watching. Share it. And stay tuned at my blog, our Facebook page, other sites, because we're going to be coming up with more information that I think will help you make a difference.